you know that when parents are asked what they would do if they had 1 extra hour every day, most parents say they would use it for sleep? Are you exhausted trying to balance kids, work, and play? Do you want more purpose and less monotony in your life? Do you get overly irritated, frustrated, and angry with your children? If you've answered yes to some of these questions, then I'm glad you're here. I know how busy you are, and I'm not here to take your time. I'm here to help you take it back. Close your windows, open your mind, and let's kick some ass.
Circus, April Circus, April Circus, Boda, Circus, Circus, April Circus, April Circus, Boda, Circus.
What up? Welcome back to Kick-Ass Dad, Passionate Parenting in a Volatile World. And we all know how volatile the world is. I'm sure if you've been following any of the news lately, it's just absolutely astounding what is going on around us. And what are we doing to change it? And that's what I want to pose today. By the way, did you like my new intro? That's my lovely youngest daughter doing her interpretation of, I'm not really sure what that was an interpretation of, but pretty darn funny, and it makes me laugh every single time she does it. So that was her 15 minutes of fame. And so coming back to this question, what are we doing to change society? I know it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. I get that. But can we afford not to do anything? Can we afford to go on with, this racial hatreds and old thinking patterns that are no longer serving, and not that they ever really served us, but that are continuing to spiral our society into decay? And we have so many people saying, there's so many things wrong with this country, and they want to fix it, but we're plugging into old belief systems to try to fix it. We got to start thinking new, folks. We can't just go back to these old beliefs. And one of the things that really resonates with me, and this is, instead of going back to old beliefs, let's go inside. What is the one thing that you can do today to create more unity in the world and less division, less political division, less racial division, less infighting within, families? And what is one thing that you can do? And I encourage people to think about this, because if you can create a sense of partnership, within a community, then you can do what it takes to start healing some of these old wounds. And you got to be willing to understand other people. And to me, it comes back to love. At the end of the day, what does every religion teach? And at its core, we have, religions have many things built on top of them, many belief systems built around them. But what's at the core? And I think you'll find, if you're honest with yourself and if you're honest with why you follow your religion in the first place, and I truly think it comes down to love. So we've got to find ways to create understanding. Where is this person coming from, or where is this group coming from, and how can we create more of that love? How can we bring more love into the room? And I think it's by serving one another. Personally, I think that if we're going to create the world we want for our children, I think that, a lot of times this is tough for me, because a lot of my friends and things and who I love to death, oftentimes, they'll see this kind of stuff as hippie and cheesy, and there's no way to change the world. And I definitely think there is a way to change the world, but I think it starts with the self. If you want to make that impact that you actually can promote change, then you got to start with the self. So again, going back to Mahatma Gandhi, this guy was just absolutely amazing. And he always said, be the change that you want to see in the world. So you've got to get up, get out, and choose a direction. What is it that you want to change, and do that? In society, we've been conditioned to think small. Our very education system is set up to churn out worker bees instead of dynamic, creative entrepreneurs, right? So if you're a dynamic creative entrepreneur, you went out and worked on yourself. You went out and learned things that you never would have learned in school. So you've got to constantly be getting outside of that conditioning. We are all taught that we need to just plug into the system that's in place, and you can't change anything. And I think that is false thinking. I think that it's a manipulation. But don't get caught up in conspiracy theory. Don't get caught up in, that the system is trying to hold you back, because we're all creating the system, right? We're all plugging into the system. We're all passing on the information that we've been given to the next generation. So what my parents have been told, they tell me, I tell my kids about how society operates. And that's where we have an opportunity to really shake things up, because we don't have to tell our kids this is the way it is. You can't change it, right? So I have this big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So what I want to do is, as I told you, I'm a child advocate, and my wife and I were foster parents, and we're huge into finding ways to leverage the youth and give them a voice and change things so that we can see a better world in the future and plug in today to create that better world. And my big, hairy, audacious goal is to create community centers in cities and in the suburbs. So, I want it for the urban youth, and I want it for the suburban youth and the rural folks as well. And the idea is you go into a city and just like a library, right? So you have this place and it's not funded by the state. It's funded by private individuals. My goal is to use funds and leverage from this podcast to be able to get to that point. But it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. And so what I want to do is, or what I'm choosing to do, is create these community centers that are like libraries, but you got paid people who come in and they're child advocates, right? So they teach music. We have, tons of musical instruments. We've got pianos, we've got guitars, we've got all these different things, and there's somebody there to teach these kids. Pull them off get them off the street, man. Get them off the street and put them in these places where you give them creative ways and teach them, you can have hip-hop class, you teach them guitar, teach them dance, and literature, and plug these kids in, because there's so many kids out there who are robbing and stealing right now who have brilliant minds. And as a society, we're giving them the finger. Right? So I don't want to get into a political argument. I want to instead be successful at what I do, pour my, fund and raise money for these systems so that we can pull, the future of America is our youth. So we have to tap into this talent and energy, get kids off the streets and off drugs and guns out of their hands. Again, don't take this politically. I don't want to take money from the state to do this. I don't want to take anybody's guns away. I want to get them out of the hands of children. Okay? Can we all agree that the life of a child on drugs on the street and with a gun is not beneficial to society? Can we at least agree on that? Right? So let's get in there. Let's lean into this thing. So we got all these negative things coming at us in the world. We got to start leaning in, folks, and pushing ourselves to face it and figure out creative ways to fix it. We cannot rely on the political system to fix it. We cannot rely on the left or the right. We cannot rely on religion to fix it. We've got to get our hands dirty, folks. Okay, so by doing that, so you put these things in, in the suburbs too. Kids have crappy home lives in the suburbs. They have crappy home lives in the cities. We all have our problems, right? So what if we got these troubled youths into programs where they can plug in, and they've got mentors, and they've got, you've got great organizations out there like Big Brother. You can start modeling these things, but what if you had this place where these kids could get off the street and go learn to play a guitar and learn yoga and learn to garden, right? So most kids don't even know where a frickin', how to grow a tomato, right? 50 years ago, you had to know how to grow a tomato, but our society has gotten to the point where you don't anymore, and we have unplugged ourselves from the natural rhythms of life and of the earth, and we've got to get back to this sense of learning and, use these places for after-school programs where kids can have tutors and, we can focus on the kids' strength, right? So they come to you, you figure out that they're great at math, but they suck at science. Well, instead of putting them through 4 hours of intense science tutoring, we plug them into, somebody who can teach them some serious math, and so they just rise off the charts. And we've got to find ways to leverage our kids' strengths instead of focusing on their weaknesses, right? So we can spend, thousands of hours trying to fix our weaknesses, or we can focus on leveraging our strengths. Look at Henry Ford. He believed that it was not about, him being the smartest guy. It was about him assembling the right teams and having, people around him who had different strengths. And then he built this freaking empire of a company. And so I heard this the other day, if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right? So we need to be lifting up. We need to get ourselves in places where we can be inspired by people who are thinking bigger than we are, so that we can then think bigger and influence other people to think bigger. And so what if we're able to do this with children and get them off the streets and get the guns out of their hands and get the crack pipe out of their mouth and plug them into something that is going to give them more of life, more energy, more opportunity, more love, more understanding, more forgiveness. And this is where we've got to make that shift. And this is how you change communities. You change communities by getting your hands dirty, by seeking to understand where people are coming from and meeting them where they are. And it's funny because when you're willing to listen to somebody else's story, you find out that they're an awful lot more like you than you had previously imagined. So I encourage you to get out there, to get your hands dirty, and stop thinking small. Again, we are conditioned by the very society we live in to think small. Start thinking big. If you had no restraints, if money were not an issue, what would you do to change the world? Write it down. Pause the podcast. Write it down. Do it. Please, just pause the podcast. Write down your vision. Stop it right now. Okay, so welcome back. Now you've got your vision, right? You wrote it down. What would absolutely light you on fire? If money were not an issue, if money had nothing, if you had all the money in the world and you couldn't go, you're going to be able to have the money to buy your boats and to buy your fun things, but put all the toys aside for a second and think about, if money were not an issue, what good could you do in the world? And make that your reason. Make that your why. And then once you do that, once you have that purpose and you start doing little things every day, just tiny little actions to get you closer, start saying yes when you have a volunteering opportunity. Start saying yes when someone needs your help. And create those relationships and do something small every day, a baby step to get you to your vision, and start observing what relationships you start creating and what energy starts to build and the momentum that you start to create. Start noticing those things, and you'll see your life start to get bigger, and you'll see your thinking start to get bigger, and eventually the funds will start to make themselves available, right? But we've got to be the kind of person that attracts that money to fuel into the projects that we want to do, right? There's the time for being broke and poor to change the world. That's over, right? We live in a society, in a system that requires cash, right? So yes, you're going to make changes and you're going to touch people's lives without a buck. And that's where you start. And then you start proving to the universe that you're the kind of person that should be attracting this money and should be attracting this wealth, because you're the kind of person that's going to do something with it. You're going to make more with less, right? So you're creating the belief in yourself that you are worthy to receive money because you are thinking bigger and you are thinking about other people. You're not thinking small. You're not just plugging into one thing. You're literally transforming yourself to think bigger. And I cannot tell you how passionate, well, obviously I can tell you how passionate I am about it because I'm doing that right now. And I'm sure you can sense the joy in my voice when I talk about this, because I just have a passion for the next generation, and I have a passion for kids, and I just have a passion for getting kids off the street, man, and then leveraging those strengths to do more in communities, to go out and build shelter for the poor and create community gardens and beautify. And that's what we need to start doing. We need to start beautifying our landscapes and our environments and making them gorgeous places to live. Turning a stone or a blacktop into a community garden, or an empty lot into a community center. And that's how we're going to get to the next level. That's how we're going to create a movement. And I truly hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that you'll go to iTunes and give us some stars and help us create that leverage to reach more people, because it's only through small actions that we can create big results. So take a small step today and do it every day and create some massive action. Get some energy and some momentum behind your vision and your purpose. And if you want to help me achieve mine, well, hop in, because the boat's wide open. I'm the only one in here, so please. We're actually getting some support now, so I love to see that. And let's create a dialogue. So have a kick-ass day, and visit us at www.kickassdadblog.com. And we're gonna take this thing to the next level. Thank you for listening.